alright. As great as the Pistons are at defense, the Spurs are just as great, and they showed that by blowing up all of the Pistons' screening actions, because as I've said before, they're definitely the best team at defending them, so the Pistons could not generate quality looks in the half court. As expected, the Spurs bigs were dropping, so that took away any rolls or lobs for Duren, and that allowed them to play too, because they didn't have to help on CADE unless it was in the paint. They basically only acted as a security blanket for the Spurs guards, because it's rare for the Spurs guards to get stuck on a screen, and they're some of the best at navigating them, so they were always recovering back in front of CADE, or at least making a flyby contest. That was all Castle did, because on the rock, he was picking CADE up 94 and skinnying up over screens. Then off the rock, he was hard denying, so CADE was not able to move freely at all. Even when the Pistons tried to run some double drags or just tried to get Castle off him, it didn't matter, because besides a couple instances where Castle messed up a switch, the Spurs were clean 1 through 4, and all their guards can do the same thing as Castle, so it was damn near impossible for him to ever turn the corner clean. I don't think he got a single open look in his spots, and Duren rarely had a chance of receiving the rock in the pocket, roll, or lob, so he had to live off cleanups, because his best looks were on the O-boards. The Pistons' two-man game was basically nullified the entire night, but what made it even more difficult for them on offense was the Spurs not respecting the other's shooting, and it showed in multiple ways, because first, when the Pistons tried to get CADE in the post, the Spurs were quick to fire, so they weren't concerned with leaving them open from deep. Then second, the Spurs were heavy in the gaps. Then third, they were sagging off their bodies a good amount. And then fourth, there were even instances where the Spurs assigned their bigs onto some of them, because that allowed their bigs to cheat off and babysit the paint instead. Even though the others were able to exploit the space at times and crash the O-boards to manufacture points that way, there just wasn't enough of those to force the Spurs into making any adjustments, so more times than not, the Pistons just had to look for transition opportunities. The most crucial ones came from Holland early, because he was able to put together a 9-0 run as soon as he subbed in, and that stretch was what jump-started their offense to at least keep them in the game throughout. But even those were difficult to capitalize on, because the Spurs were consistently getting back in transition, so there weren't enough runouts, and in order to stay in the game, they just had to do the same thing back to the Spurs on the other end. If anything, I thought their transition defense was even better than the Spurs, because they were also consistently getting back, so the Spurs weren't getting many runouts either, and it took until the third before they could find some. There was a crucial 9-0 stretch from Castle and Wemby that was the separation they needed to take control of the game, and from that point onward, they went on to maintain it for the rest of the night, because they were able to find some more timely transition buckets, or even some timely buckets in the half court. In the fourth, they were constantly crashing the O-boards, so those led to crucial second chance points, but prior to that quarter, they already had consistent scoring in the half court throughout the night, and a lot of it was stemming from Vassell, Castle, and Champagnie. Vassell and Champagnie were making quick decisions on the catch, so both of them were burning the Pistons for being in help, especially in the first half, and I don't even think the Pistons were necessarily playing bad defense, because besides some instances of overhelping, they were stunting or showing when they needed to, so it was more about both of their shot making. A lot of their looks were being generated in the Spurs screening actions, from horns, to pin downs, to double drags, and to zips for Vassell to fill the left wing, because depending on the big, the Pistons were mixing up their coverages, and Duren was the easier one to exploit. He was mainly in a drop, and staying hugged up to Wemby, so whenever he was brought into the action, there was more space to exploit compared to Reed, because Reed was mainly showing, switching, or veering. Duren's drop was the main reason for Castle getting downhill a lot of the times, so he just got to pick the Pistons apart once he got to his spots. And what him, Vassell, and Champagnie did on offense is what separates them and the Pistons, because both sides can play ridiculous defense, but their side has more firepower from top to bottom. Just watch the tape.